Welcome to the Vacation Races and Friends podcast, a podcast about events, travel, and the people who love both. Find more episodes at vacationraces.com.
Hey everyone, this is Robin. I have just a few housekeeping items before we get to the podcast episode. Today's episode was originally recorded for the Juniper Lab podcast. Our friends at the Juniper Lab graciously let us publish it here as well, since the episode features Vacation Races founder Salem Stanley discussing race directing during a pandemic. Because it was recorded towards the end of May, you may hear them discuss things that have since already happened. Be sure to follow the Juniper Lab on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll give you some links in the episode details, so be sure to go there and follow them. And that's it. Enjoy the show, and I hope you all have a fun and safe holiday weekend.
Welcome back to the show today. Today I'm here with Salem, who is going to introduce himself. So go for it, Salem.
Yeah, so I am Salem Stanley. I am the founder of Vacation Races. Got into the industry full-time, 8-something years ago. We started a road running series of road races at the national parks, inspired by Matt Gunn, who started Ultra Adventures. Is a good friend from growing up here in St. George. And we were lucky to acquire his races 4 years ago, kind of along the same theme. It's ultra marathons at some very premier national park destinations. So we do that, and we've been doing that full time. I own a couple other companies like a compost portable toilet company, virtual race company, and then we have our nonprofit called Wander Project that raises money for public lands and some other things in the areas that we run.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like that was really my initial introduction to vacation races through Matt Gunn, essentially. Because I ran Tushers years ago, and Zion.
You're hardcore if you ran Tushers. That's I got a fun story about Tushers, but it's a great race. We gave it to Air Vipa because it didn't quite fit with our vibe, but we wanted it to stay. It's a good race, so we just gave it to them because we wanted to see it continue. It's a fun race.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the cool thing, like Matt Gunn's all about like showing people these rad places. So when you guys took over, it's kind of like, okay, Josh, like I'm just looking at the patches right now, Joshua Tree, Yosemite, Zion, Bryce, like all these cool things. And it's like, people need to go see these amazing places. Right?
Yeah, it's so funny because a lot of people, like our primary customers, they have a hard time just saying, I'm just going to go on vacation to Zion. But if they sign up for something and they have to train for something, then okay, all of a sudden they're willing to open their wallet and they're willing to kind of like go on vacation. Or go on a trip, but it's kind of an interesting dynamic. But our races are kind of a catalyst. At most of our events, it's somewhere like half the people have never been to that national park before. The race is the reason they're coming, and so it's been really fun because I get the same. I Jones on the same thing Matt does, like showing people some of the beautiful places we get to go. Is like, oh my gosh, I get more pleasure out of that than like visiting it myself.
Oh yeah, for sure. I guess you show someone something new and they're just like, holy crap, like, I didn't know this existed.
Or at least getting their reaction, like you kind of get to relive it again, and their first time there. So it's good. It's fun. I'm lucky to have the job that I've got.
Yeah, for sure. And
maybe less so today, but up until for the last 8 years have been really great. So
yeah, I guess speaking of that whole thing, it's like we're in the middle of the whole coronavirus pandemic. Whatever, it's been going on for a while, and it's been kind of interesting. And I like a lot of race organizations. We talked about Air Vipa briefly just now. They've been doing virtual races. You guys have done a virtual race and everything. But I don't really want to talk much about that. More so Bryce, the Bryce Marathon or Ultra Marathon, as you call it, is coming up. And when is it again? It's
end of the month. It's last weekend of the month. This month has 5 weekends, so it's like the 30th and 31st, I think.
Okay, yeah, and you're choosing to organize an event, and obviously it's a kind of a tricky situation. Yeah. So let's just kind of jump into it. Like, why do the event? Because like Western states, canyons, all these other events, they canceled because of coronavirus. Right. They're in California, we're in Utah, drastically different areas and situations. But let's talk about that. That's the
that's the primary thing. All of our events, like regardless of when we hold them, there are permitting regulations that we have to abide by. There are we just have to get permission to run, and they always have stipulations on what you have to do. The stipulations today from the state and from the county health officials, stuff like that, are like more like there's more regulations, there's more things we have to abide by. But we started looking into it, and if we think we can do it, then we go ahead and do it. And we think it's going to be a decent experience, then we're going to go ahead and do it. It's going to be different. But when I'm not the race director. Lyle Anderson's going to be the race director. He's worked for me since the beginning. He's very good at it. But I told him, I was like, when we were kind of just looking at whether we're going to do the race or not, I was like, if anybody feels like we shouldn't be there, if local law enforcement, if the local health officials, if the tourism, if anybody's just like, yeah, we'd felt uncomfortable, then we weren't going to do it. But the more we talked to people, it was the local community was, at least all the businesses are very happy that we were coming. They were hoping we were going to do the event. Health officials, law enforcement, Forest Service, they had plenty of meetings. We gave them lots of chances to tell us no, and nobody did. And so we're like, okay, if they can do it, we can make some adjustments. Let's try it. I didn't want it to look like we were kind of like it was a money grab. So we didn't let anyone else register, because we thought if we're going to do it, it's going to open it up and have as many people as we can. So we're keeping it really small. It's only going to be like 600 people, which is tiny for our events. That's tiny. That's over 5 distances. So we're expecting about 600 people will come, and but we think it's going to be good. We're obviously going to have to change a lot of things. A big part of running in general, but ultras even more so because of the time that you have to deal with. The finish line's a place where a lot of people hang out. That's part of the vibe of the race, and that's going to be missing. Like we're going to encourage people to not hang out at the finish line. Like that's a major concession we're going to have to do, because the state guideline is no gatherings of any kind. So anytime we see out and we're going to see that, it looks like it's a gathering, we're going to ask people to break up and stuff like that. But we think most people who are coming understand what they're getting into. Anybody who didn't want to come, we encouraged people to drop, like to not come if they were at all uncomfortable with the travel or the run or any aspect of it. So they were able to defer to next year or to a future event. So we gave people those options. I think there are a handful of people that are going to be doing it, like running it virtually in their own home or near their home. But yeah, basically I just looked at it as what do the customers kind of want? What do they typically get? And look for what are they getting out of a race? And then what are the state guidelines? And if we can put something together that fits that, we wanted to be aggressive. We're not we're not the most conservative of companies. And I wanted to be open too. Like as soon as we made the decision, I posted on a race director hub on Facebook, just saying like, look, we're going to do this. I'm going to share anything I can about what we're doing, because I don't just want us to be able to do events. I want the industry to adjust and adapt to what the rules of the game are today. It's good for everybody if there's kind of a robust racing scene. And so I'm planning to be very open about what we're trying, what works, what doesn't. We'll do surveys from people, and I'm going to share those results. And again, we've got to figure out a way to survive in the meantime. There's a lot of race directors out there that just don't have anything to do, and they don't have an income, and it's a very scary time. And so I want to try to help. I feel like we're in a little bit of a unique position, because our events they're big, but they're not like huge. They're not super high profile, but we're bigger than a lot of kind of mom and pop operations. And so I felt like we're in a position where we can go out and do some of these testing. We can still kind of fly under the radar to some degree, but we've got some resources that a lot of smaller running companies don't have. So I felt like it was kind of I don't know, this over dramatized it a little bit, but it's like we kind of had an obligation to kind of do it for the industry. And so I'm hoping that it's going to be a positive thing, and that we can come across as sincere as what we're doing, but hopefully we can learn some things and kind of establish new best practices for the COVID era.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the things you're doing? Because we were talking about how like I think it was a couple weeks ago, you did that Facebook Live. And that's when the announcement was made that we're going to hold Bryce, or Vacation Races is going to hold Bryce. So what are some of the changes that you have to implement? Because you're saying like no congregating at the finish line, which is what a lot of people like.
Yeah, sure.
But obviously there's other things too. You're interacting closely with people during an event. So like, what's kind of going on with that?
So go piece by piece. So the first things are Race Expo. There isn't going to be one. So usually there's vendors there. What we're going to do is any sponsors that we do have, we're going to do Facebook. We're going to do sort of promote them on Facebook leading up. So it's going to be kind of a virtual expo. We still have to get everybody their bibs, but we're going to create more of a, if anybody's gone out to eat, the kind of the drive-through thing, it's going to be more like that, where you'll stay in your car, we'll check your ID, we'll get you your bib, and off you go. So that's what check-in's going to look like. Or if you just show up at the start line, we'll be able to kind of get bibs there. So that's the first one is the expo. The start, instead of trying to get everybody across the finish line in 10-15 minutes like we normally do, it's going to be, each distance has an hour. And the way I described it is, if you're gunning for time, if you're going for like an overall win, you should be kind of toe the line, be at the beginning, because that's the only fair way, in my estimation, to run a race, is go off gun time if you're going for overall. If you're worried about the Grim Reaper, if you're worried about not making a cutoff and like getting pulled, then you should probably be in that second 15-minute window. And then if you're not going to win, but you're not overly worried, you're just trying to finish, then you're kind of that last half hour to start. And so we're hoping that that's going to spread out the field. There's no congregating at the start line. There's no need to big lines at the porta potties or anything like that. It should be pretty straightforward. Then course won't be any different. We're keeping the same courses that we'd run otherwise. So it's stunning, beautiful, really hard if you're a 100-miler, especially. It's a brutal course if you're a 100-miler, but it's going to be so good. It's going to be so good. The changes we've made. We haven't had a chance to run it this way we're doing it for a few reasons. Anyway, the aid station is the other big one. So we're shifting. Typically, we have a camp chef. We're making quesadillas. We're making grilled cheese, peanut butter sandwiches, all that. And we're going to go to everything's kind of prepackaged, which of course I don't love. We try to generate send nothing to landfill, and we're going to generate some trash. We just don't see a way around it right now, at least for this first test. So everything's gonna be prepackaged, and then we've added, I think we changed a couple of aid stations where we previously were not gonna have drop bags. We're gonna allow them with the aim of everybody kind of leaning on their drop bags a little more than maybe they typically do. So there's going to be some of that. Typically we want, when somebody comes into an aid station, we're like, hey, can we help you? Can we get your thing? Can we fill up your water? Like all that. We're going to try to stay away from that. We're not going to have pre-mixed gnarly. That's our sponsor for the hydration for like electrolytes. But it'll be single serve packs, so you can still get it. You're just gonna have to do it yourself. So it's gonna it's just gonna be a little more hands off when you get to the aid station. Everything will still be there. There's still gonna be lots of options, but we're kind of steering away from some of the stuff that we typically like to do. And then I think you mentioned the finish line. We typically bring like food trucks and a few things to encourage people to hang out and stay there, and we're not going to do that this year. So it's going to be kind of, I don't want to say it's going to be unceremonious, but like when you finish, we're going to be so proud of you and so happy that you're there, and we're going to cheer for you, but we're probably not going to come up and give you a hug like we want to. And we're probably going to ask you to not hang out and maybe go hang out in your car or at your hotel or something like that, which I hate, like, cause that's like, you want to celebrate this rad thing that you're doing, but like, we're gonna see how it goes, and then we'll kind of report back. So those are the main changes. Again, the course is going to be awesome. The support is still going to be there. It's just going to be more hands-off support. But you're still going to get if you're in it for the shirt and the medal, you're still going to get that. If you're in it for some of the camaraderie, I think you're still going to see some of that. But it's going to be different, and I think we all have to get used to different for a little while. And that's really the trick. So we'll get feedback. We're going to we lean real heavily on customer experience. So we're going to get a lot of feedback, and we'll share that with the world, just to show that like some of these measures worked, some of them we maybe went too far, and we're going to try to find a balance where we can abide by what the state wants us to do, but also provide a positive experience for people. And we're going to have to experiment a little bit because there's a lot of uncertainty with everything that we're doing. I don't know how any of those changes are going to impact the overall runner experience. I'm very interested to find out, and I know I'm not the only one.
I guess there's only one real way to know, though, right? It's like you just got to roll with it and see what happens.
Yeah, that's kind of my attitude is like, look, let's start small. Let's not try to bite off more than we can chew. A 600-person race is not big by our standards. Very manageable numbers, so we shouldn't have any trouble taking care of people. We'll still have medics. We'll still have all of that's still going to be there. Everyone will be safe. We're just and then of course if anybody's, we're going to strongly discourage anybody with symptoms, like stay away and things like that. I do plan to ask everybody with the 2 weeks after the race if they're showing any symptoms or anything like that, and we'll try to gauge if we're causing harm to the world or if we're not. And again, I'll publicly share that even if it doesn't show anything good. We're trying to be the test case for the industry as much as anybody cares. And so I really am sincere about trying to, if it's unsafe, if what we are doing is not safe or good, or if it's a detriment to the world, well, then we're not going to do it going forward. But again, I don't know that we can know that until we try. Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at.
I think it's the main thing. It seems like a lot of people just, like there's a pandemic, shut down everything, and then it's like after a month, people are going crazy, and then obviously economically, like you can't keep paying people on payroll without any sort of revenue. So I think it's important that you guys are doing this versus other. Yeah. I'm not talking about other companies where they just shut down because they just know what to do, and it's like someone has to kind of take the lead and just see what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it's as event directors, we're stir crazy, as much as anybody, and we put in all the planning. We put the plan we put the plan together months before. So our June lineup our spring lineup was ready to go, and then we've had to cancel almost everything. This is the one thing that we didn't have to cancel. And even that, frankly, I mean, there's 3 weeks left. Something could happen still, like there's no guarantees until you've crossed the finish line that the event's not going to get called off. We don't think it will, like there's no indication that it will. But it's crazy times. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like it's just all uncertain, and some people are very uncomfortable with that, and some people are like, no, okay, let's do it, let's roll with it, let's see what happens, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, well, just speaking of like just the diversity there, people. Oh crap, I hit that ladder. We're in the warehouse right now. Just thinking of like people's different opinions about things. Some people are like, oh, you should not run a race, and then people, yeah, we should run races. So you guys sent out a survey, and you said 7,000. This is before we started recording. You mentioned that 7,000 people replied to your survey. Yeah,
so we did a survey just trying to figure out what people were worried about. Was it the travel? Was it the overnight? Was it financial issues? Like what were the things that were kind of weighing on them in terms of like running events? And we found that I'm painting with very broad brushes here, but our customer base, not overly concerned about travel, but generally speaking, they're not super stoked on plane travel. So driving distance is where it's at for most people. I think a lot of that, like personally, I'm like, yeah, staying at a hotel would honestly make me feel uncomfortable, irrationally, I think, but I probably would. But if I'm taking our RV or just tent camping, probably, then what's the harm? So I think that's kind of in a lot of people's heads. Financially, what shocked me financially is not, our customers have not been hit that hard. And we have a generally affluent group that comes to run. But that really surprised me. There's some, there's certainly some that are hurting, but I thought it would have been devastating for most. It's been devastating to us. And I just assumed that everybody was kind of feeling that. And, but that wasn't the case. The things that people are worried about are plane travel, not overnight. Group size was a big one. Once you get over 100 people at a time, you could clearly see people were more concerned with that. And trying to think what else. I think that was it. So those are the main concerns people had. And so again, the way I look at it is people want different experiences and they run for different reasons. So many people run for so many different reasons, and the state constantly gives us guidelines and regulations on events, and all our permitting agencies do the same. So going forward, the game for an event director is figure out how to play within the new, the rules have changed. The rules of the game have changed. Maybe it's temporary, maybe it's forever, I don't know. But the rules have changed, and it's up to us to try to figure out how to create an event given what customers want, what the state wants, and what we can actually logistically make happen.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of typical for any business, right? Like we interviewed Steve Hooper from
the St.
Running Center, and was like, well, how are you going to survive in this? And he's been around for 10, 12 years or something here, but it's like, yeah, it's hard, but instead of having people come into the store, we're doing online sales and pickups and doing more social content marketing, and his store is doing great now.
Yep.
And so I think with any business, you have to adapt to the circumstances. You can't just be like, well, I'm going to continue doing what I did 10 years ago, and now there's the internet.
That's exactly. I read a book, right at the beginning, just because I needed to kind of get my head right. If anybody's listened to it, it's called Who Moved My Cheese? It's like a business book, like a corporate business book.
It sounds like a child book. But...
Yeah, right. But it's basically these these four characters are in this maze, and they go to this cheese. They found this big beautiful place that has cheese, and then somebody moved the cheese, and so then a couple of the characters just quickly went off and started to find the new cheese. A couple of them just sat down and were like, well, I'm going to wait till they bring it back or something. I can't believe somebody changed the rules on me. And of course, it's a metaphor. But that's how I feel. So that's what's going on in my head is I'm like, okay, if things have changed, I can't just sit around and be pissed off that something changed. We got to just adapt and do our best. And I mean, that's all anybody can do. So I don't blame anybody for trying. I don't blame customers for being upset with how race companies are having to manage their finances and what they can offer. Like everybody's hurting. This is weird for everybody. And so I'm very sympathetic to everybody, and just, we got to figure out how to make it work. But just like anybody, we're trying to do our best. We're trying to come up with what we think makes sense and can help us stick around for a while. So
yeah, for sure. What has been, I know obviously like Bryce and the Bryce area is very reliant on tourism. Yeah. And granted, there's some ranches and farms and stuff out there, but for the most part, like they make their money off of tourism. So what has been the general business response? Because if you're going to have 600 to 1,000 people or more or whatever at Bryce, like that's just the runners, I guess, 600 runners. Like
600 runners, usually it's 1.5 people with them. So yeah, I'd expect 9, maybe 1,000 people.
Okay, so that obviously has an economic impact on the area.
Yeah. Well, and the guidance we've told people is like, look, you should probably bring some of your own groceries, because we don't know, like being able to feed everybody, we can't count on it. And it might be, you might have a big long line to go into the one subway that's like in the middle of the state, if that's what you're counting on to eat. So you should probably bring some of your own stuff. But yeah, if you've got the means, patronize people. Like they need these. I mean, I read a thing, Ruby's Inn, who own, I mean, they own like the whole town, like the guys who own it. So I'm not overly sympathetic, but they're good, people. Like I'm not talking shit about them. They got deep pockets. They're fine. But they, like 3 weeks ago, they had the first time in 40 years where they didn't sell one room.
Wow.
And their max is like 650 rooms. Like that wasn't like, oh, it's a 40 room hotel and they didn't sell one. 600 rooms, and they didn't sell a single one on a given night. Where the year before it was like 644 was how many they sold. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like you do the math on that, and those rooms aren't cheap. They're losing $2.5 million a month. A month.
That's a lot.
That's crazy. It's $70,000 a day. And so, but that translates to jobs, and that translates to other things. So the business response has been very, very positive. A few people who live in the general area have expressed very legitimate concerns, and I don't blame them at all. But once they started to see kind of the measures we're taking, even some of that fervor died down. They're going, okay, you guys are at least being thoughtful and like deliberate about we're not just like spitting in the face of coronavirus saying, we're going to be fine. Like we're going, no, this is real and serious and something we have to consider. But I think we're going to be okay. Again, in southern Utah, there's been a total of, I've read it this morning, it's like 136 cases. I think 70 of them have been fully recovered. And so we're talking like 70 or fewer active cases, 3 deaths, which of course sucks. Like anybody who died needlessly is bad.
Yeah, it's sad, it's tragic.
But like, it's just, we're not New York. We're not LA. We're not a hotbed. And maybe we will, if events like mine, like maybe we're bringing it. I hope not. I sincerely hope not. But I'm looking at the statistics. I'm going, I just don't think there's much of a risk. In fact, somebody even posted this, and I agree with it. There's statistically, there's more risk driving to the event, being in your car, than actually catching the coronavirus there. Like, so there's always risks in everything we do. I mean, just shoot, you're going to run 100 miles like that. There's risk involved with that. Like there's going to be. This is an increased risk. This is a unique risk. But I don't know that ultras specifically are so spread out. Like I just don't see it being a problem. But that's why we're going to check. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm foolhardy. Who knows? We're going to do it, and I'm going to try to be very open about what worked and what didn't and how we think the event went, and hopefully can help establish some new protocols and things and set expectations for the industry that other races can mimic and find success with. So
yeah, which is good because obviously it's like you have your people on payroll that you need to support and you need some sort of revenue for them, but the fact that you're also essentially creating a plan or some sort of like trial and error guidelines for other race organizations is good too, because it's like Air Viper running in Phoenix employs however many people, and Range Shadow running in the Pacific Northwest employs however many people, and that's important. Like you're not just like, okay, we're doing this coronavirus and we're gonna hold an event and this is usual, like carry on.
Right.
You're definitely like taking it seriously, but also realize, okay, people need to survive and people need to do things, and you can take coronavirus seriously, but also have a business.
I think that's true, and there's so many people trying to make it another political bullshit, polarizing issue. I have no interest in storming the state house and trying to call the governor, but there's some real things that need to be addressed. We can't just hunker down for forever. So like that's as unreasonable as saying, oh, we should open up like normal. Like there's middle ground here, and it's okay. It's totally okay to have concerns and issues with lots of stuff that's going on. So when we launched, I made a point. I was like, look, if anybody, we knew there'd be a little bit of backlash. And I was like, if anybody responds with a rational, fact-based argument, I'm very open to that. but all we got were very emotional responses. And to me, that's not a way to manage anything. You shouldn't, I'm not even saying ignore the emotion, but you shouldn't let emotion run the whole thing.
Exactly.
Like there's room for it. Sure. There's fear. That's real. It's totally real. I got 4 kids. This is weird for them. Like we're trying to keep things as normal as we can for my kids, but they've expressed concern and you can't just dismiss those. So I think those are real and valid, but at some point, I don't know, like you gotta balance with like, what are the realities of life? And are we going to be able to get back to big events? Not anytime soon. I honestly, I'm not even certain we'll be able to do it in the spring. Like, I don't see what changes between now and next spring to be able to do that. So we're going to work like nothing's changed. And we're going to plan that way, but we're also going to plan going, okay, what if we can't do this? Then what do we do? And so we're going to work on this summer some other concepts with like, at least for half marathon distances, like running through the night, where, at Zion, you can't really run in the summer. I mean, you can, but most people don't want to, because it's so freaking hot. But if we can go through the night, then you get the stars and stuff. It's beautiful at night, out in the desert. Oh my gosh. So it's a different kind of beauty. And again, I think if you're somebody out there who's like, I like the way things were, and that's what I want, and I don't want anything else, you're going to have to wait a while. That I don't even say you're wrong. Like, okay, that you can want whatever you want, but you're going to have to wait a while for things to get back to normal. If you're somebody who's like, I want to just get out and run. I want to see the pretty course. I want to earn a medal. I want to have something to look forward to. I want to train for something, like whatever it is that drives you. I think there's going to be some options. There's virtual options, but that's going to start to lose its novelty if it hasn't already for a lot of people. But there's going to be, I think, some options that'll pop up. I know we're going to try to push some of that, and we got to find a new normal, at least until everybody's comfortable traveling, or hopefully there's a vaccine or something to where everyone can feel safe and okay, out in the world traveling and intermingling, because I sure like it.
Yeah, I think we all do, right? Like getting out and doing things, especially once the weather's warming up, and it's like, okay, we've been stuck in a frozen wherever, and it's like, let's go somewhere warm. But I think, like, just from a purely business perspective, what you're saying, like having night events or something, that might draw a crowd of totally different people.
I think so.
Because, just for example, like you're talking about like adapting to certain situations, right? And I feel like I keep talking about Aravaipa in Phoenix, but once it hits like May there,
they're a good company. It's okay to talk about them. I like those guys. Company. I like those guys. They're great. They're
Jamil and Haley and all the race directors put on
good people. Yeah. They're some of the best people that I've ever met. So they're good people. It's a good company.
For sure. But what they do is, like, once it gets too hot, it's like obviously people don't want to run a 50K or 50 mile when it's 90 degrees before the sun comes up.
Right.
So you end up having like a night race. They have this night series throughout the summer, and they're super popular. And it's so interesting because you can go out and you can run, I don't know, say McDowell Mountain or whatever during the day, and it's one thing. And then you run it at night, it's completely different. So you draw a different crowd of people and different people looking for a different experience.
For sure. Well, and we did the same, like we have talking about our Joshua Tree race. We have a race at Joshua Tree in November, early November. And it's all of our other races start when the sun comes up. This one starts at sundown. Cool. And with the idea that because most of our races are not inside park boundaries, if you've ever been to Joshua Tree, the park is beautiful and very cool. Outside the park, it's ugly high desert of California. There's nothing pretty about it. So we had a lot of people saying, oh, we need to do a race at Joshua Tree. And I'm like, I don't know how. I scouted it 3 times, and I'm like, there's nothing here that's pretty. And then we were like, well, what if we do it in the night? Because it's a nighttime park, so you can see the stars and everything. Like, it really is so remote. People in LA can't see the stars at all, get to drive 2 hours away, and they can see everything. It's amazing. And so that's races. That's one of our most popular races now. So we've got experience with night races, and it's really unique. Again, if you're out trying to PR, you're probably not going to do it at a night race. But if you're out there to have a really interesting experience, oh man, you should try it. and it gets you out of your comfort zone, and it does a lot of good. There's a lot of really good things about the night. And so, again, maybe people hate it, and that's okay. Again, whatever customers want, and what we're going to try to figure out what the majority of people want. And frankly, some people, 30%, I would guess at least, don't want to travel and they want to stay home. And so we're going to come up with some virtual options and some virtual things that you can do at home and feel comfortable there. But for the people who are like, I don't mind traveling, we're going to try to come up with options for them too. So.
Yeah, I think is great. So I think that about wraps it up. Unless there's something else you want to talk about, it's interesting to hear about.
Man, I'm an open book. Yeah, like whatever. I talk about whatever if you got questions. But
no, like the situation is just interesting, just to see like how businesses and people have reacted so differently. And obviously everyone's different, and you're talking about every like situation, state, physical area is so different than where we are. And I think it's important to try to carry on as best we can, but then also be responsible and safe about it, which it sounds like you guys are doing that.
But that's what we try to do all the time. Again, like we try to do zero waste because it's not because we have to, not because we're mandated to, because we think we're trying to be responsible in how we operate. And that's just how we operate generally is we try to be as responsible as we can, and we don't bat 1,000. So I'm sure somebody's rolling their eyes at me here, saying that, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't know, we're doing the best we can. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about this. It's like no matter what you do, somebody's going to be upset with you.
Sure.
You could not hold any events, people would be upset. You could hold all your events normally, people would be upset. So it's kind of just finding the middle ground and doing it, like you're saying, always safely and responsibly, and that's the best you can do. Well,
and again, we're trying to be very fact-based on how we approach it and what the risks are and what makes sense. And even internally, I was talking to Lyle. He's like, yeah, we're doing everything prepackaged. I was like, is there no way we can have bacon for people, for like the 100 milers at least? Like, is there something we can do? And I really want people to have a good experience, but like we gotta decide. So we're gonna experiment with some things, and we really do rely heavily on runner feedback. It's so easy for me to project my own preferences and biases and things. But it's another thing to be able to hear and kind of see it through somebody else's eyes and have some empathy and try to go, oh, they want it different than I do. That's not bad or wrong. It's just different and maybe better. And usually when I listen to those voices, more than just one person wants some of those things. So I do not operate events for myself. I operate them for my customers, and I want to make sure they have a good experience.
Yeah.
So
it's awesome. I guess that's why you have so many events. And
we've been successful until this last March. We were doing great, but hopefully we'll muddle through. Some of the stimulus stuff has helped, and but it's no silver bullet. And I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen, but our lives are going to change, and it's got to get used to it.
That's like what do you do, right? You just keep trucking forward.
Yeah, like I could sit and whine about it all, or we can get off our ass and try to solve the problem. And if we succeed, great. If we don't, we'll deal with that too.
Just go down swinging, right?
Yeah, I said the same thing. I was like, look, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging. Like, we're going to try. But I also, I believe in being a responsible citizen, a responsible company. I mean, that's why we have our nonprofit. That's why we're really trying to be good to the areas that we get to run. And we really don't want to be a burden, especially on the National Park Service. Like we don't want to be a burden there. And sometimes we do a better job than others, but we're trying. I don't know. We're just people doing our best. Like, that's all anybody is, right? Like we're just trying. We're just out there trying.
Exactly. I think that's the main takeaway from this, is that everyone's doing the best they can in the way that they think they are. And we all grew up with different experiences. And
sure.
Experiences are vastly different, and everyone's just trying to do the best they can. And I think that's really important to remember. And if somebody has a very strong opinion about something, it's like, okay, like I'll take it for what it is, but it's like you can't get upset about things sometimes. You just need to talk through them and have rational conversations, which is really important.
That's it. But we really do listen. I look at every feedback, like all the feedback we get is I really, really care about, and so we'll respond to it. If we see that we need to make changes, then we'll make changes. Like I'm not in this for ego at all. I just want to take care of people and show them a good time. So
I'm sure there's other things you could be doing that would make more money and
yeah,
give
that's
you more power.
that's what's so funny when people are like, oh, you're just making money hand over fist. Like, okay, I was an investment banker for a while. Like, there are lots easier ways to be making millions of dollars than through race directing.
Yeah.
Good heavens.
If you're just looking for popularity, it's probably not being a race director.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Oh my gosh. This is the dumbest way to try to make a living, but I don't know, man. I really like it.
Guess it works if you like
And we're
it.
pretty good at it. Like, I think we're pretty good at it. I don't know. A lot of people like us and some people don't. That's okay.
Guess if you're happy, that's what counts.
Right. Yeah. That's how I'm going out and like take care of my family, my kids. I pay my employees well. Like we do a good job.
What more can you ask for?
Yeah. Right.
Well, man, well, it was good talking to you, and
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
yeah, it was fun to kind of learn about the events, and I hope Bryce goes well.
Me too. I'll be out there. Moving barrels of poop around. Our toilet company does the composting portable toilets, and I'll be running the show there. So
if anybody has any grievances, you're the poop guy.
I'm the poop guy, man. Come and find me. I love to talk to you from about 6 feet away. So it'll be great.
Buckets of poop around.
That's it. That's what I do. I'll be wearing a mask. I don't usually wear a mask, but I'll be wearing a mask this time.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek.